You know, I wouldn't say slow thinker, but I like to spend my time deliberating a lot of things before I make a decision on something. And I have to separate myself from the battle before I comment on the battle or the fight. Because back in 2015, there was this man named Rick Rynearson who started attacking me.
My name is Rick Rynearson. I'm a former drone pilot. I once refused a mission because it violated the Constitution of the United States. I would like to now speak with you about Brandon Bryant.
Online, and it was so bizarre as he reached out to me, but I didn't know why, and he was fucking always drunk usually when we talked, and incoherent, just rambled nonsense. And doing research on this man's background, I feel like I don't really give a fuck about his upbringing, but his attitude is that of a fighter pilot for sure. Like the worst of the worst types of fighter pilots, like the ones that that watched Maverick and emulate Tom Cruise instead of Iceman.
That's not what I heard.
No, we did. We got Jester.
No. Below the hard deck does not count.
Hard deck my ass. We nailed that son of a bitch.
Ha! You guys really are cowboys.
What's your problem, Kazansky? You're everyone's problem. That's because every time you go up in the air, you're unsafe. I don't like you because you're dangerous.
That's right.
Nice, man. I am dangerous.
Which if you're ever been in the military, the most sensible people, Iceman is the sensible fucking dude. Because Tom Cruise's fucking dickhead character gets his buddy killed. Anyways, but there's actually a lot of people in the drone program that looked up to that movie for some reason, and people wanted to make a drone version of Maverick. Anyways, going back to this dude, he is totally right with his angst with the border patrol, unless he was doing something. I mean, that's the key. I was like, I don't know this guy.
He immediately produced his identification. At minute 11, after he realized that that identification wasn't satisfactory, offered to produce 2 passports. That offer was not taken up, and then there was silence. So I don't understand what he did that contributed to the lengthy time that they just sat there.
All I'm saying, I'm not saying that his time took up each and every minute of the 34 minutes. I'm saying,
but Border Patrol and those types of people who, I know the propaganda that they're given. I know the propaganda that they're fed, and how they're trying to be inspired to, who they're protecting, the innocents and stuff. But really, they're just fucking cogs in the machine. And they probably harassed this dude because he showed him a little bit of attitude, and they're like, oh yeah, look how much power I have to make your fucking life miserable. It doesn't, all these guys, all the Border Patrol, all it does is make them do more paperwork. Like, they're already fucking bored as shit. And if you drive a armored car through the border, you're definitely looking very suspicious. So.
What's going on?
How's it going today?
Good, how are you doing?
Doing well. Is this your vehicle, sir?
It is.
Hey, can you roll down your window? Is that as far as it'll go?
No, it can go down more.
What's that?
It can go down more.
Okay. You said this is your vehicle?
It is, yeah.
Do me a favor. Go ahead and park over here for me, please, sir. Off to the side. I'll be with you in a moment.
Okay. Can you tell me why?
Yeah, I'll be with you in a moment. There's a bunch of traffic over here. Just go ahead and park over here. I'll be with you in a second. Secondary.
So, I mean, as an officer of the Air Force, in true duty and noble service, like respect to one another is very important. And when I am not being treated with respect by someone, I'm not going to say don't. I try not to give back in kind. But sometimes pride gets in the way, and I think that's kind of where this guy was like, I'm an officer of the Air Force, how dare you? Like, he was using his officer rank as a gesture of nobility rather than of a servant, which is the proper place for any warrior who serves. And
Okay. There's my ID. Okay. Okay. I am in the military. Yeah, I'm. Why are you guys detaining me?
And so he should have been like, yes, like in that instance, he is an individual and sovereign person, but he is a captain, major. I don't know if that was when he was a captain well, he was a major of the Air Force, retired as a major. And so that is an attitude unbecoming of the ideals that I understand that the military would like of its gentlemen warriors.
Well, I want to apologize on behalf of the federal government for them doing that to you. They shouldn't have. Yeah. And so again, I appreciate your service and thank you for being here.
I'm a staff sergeant, so I get to be in your face, kind of no bullshit. But officers are supposed to act with decorum. And one of the things that I think that Rick was really confusing, like his Twitter and his blog said, legally he's not, it doesn't reflect the attitudes of the military or whatever.
The views expressed here are personal and do not represent the Air Force, the Department of Defense, or the United States government. Believe that.
Whatever. But he's exercising his will to free speech. And I was told that even when we're out of uniform, our behavior reflects our positioning. And not only that, but our the military as a whole. And I think some people, like in a healthy manner, that is like, act your best. Act nobly, act justly. Like like if you misbehave, if you stand up for something and then you stand up for it and say, no, this is wrong, I stand for it. It's different than like being beaten and put in line. And I think that Rick was one of those officers that expected people to behave how under his authority and command. And because I was only a staff sergeant, even though like I'm a civilian now, I don't hold rank, but that is, I feel honored to have an honorable discharge as a staff sergeant. I served my fucking country, and if there's any question about it, just
look at what Brandon says next. He says, and because I violated that constitutional right, I became an enemy of the American people. Man, that's powerful.
Look, I'm still serving my country, and I'm serving it in the capability that I was trained to do, integrity first, service before self, excellence not. And where I think that Rick should have exercised his officership. He never exercised leadership. It was like I wish I didn't these things were driving me mad, so my ex made me delete them. And I wish I didn't. I wish I would have saved them all, because it was like this guy was saying so much ridiculous shit, and I couldn't understand where it was coming from. And where I understand it is also this is psychological warfare and manipulation. Accusing me of something, and I guess he didn't understand that I was like expressing my heart. And that was a thing that I did to certain, like, there's a couple times that it's happened, and I really feel that it's always misunderstood by unhealthy men, and as a weakness. And I think that Rick thought that, he just talked to a bunch of people who were still in, who were, one of the people that I know that he was conversing with was an airman who had been was having money trouble. And so it was people like him who were telling Rick Rynearson all sorts of bullshit, how they treated me, and the fact that there's no one else really that has, of who I've been with, has really reached out, and I've been really fucking pissed about that. Like I want to punch them all in the gut. Like I just want one solid fucking hit right below the solar plexus. I'm a really, one thing that the reason I bring Rick up is because like I wanted to rely on this guy, because because his history is, while he's also this huge dickhole, he also obeyed a command that he felt was wrong, and I feel like that needs to be honored. And one thing about that is I didn't do that. Well, I bitched, but I did it. It's like I bitched and bitched and bitched and bitched and bitched, but I did my job. I was really good at my day. And I bitched. But I never once said no. And I know where that comes from for me. And I have to say that I admire Rick Rynearson for that, because there's a story that I would like to tell. I think that that's one thing that Rick didn't understand, was that my public image has mostly been a release of the shame and humiliation I feel at having participated in the drone program in a very public sense, because we need it. We need our warriors to be ashamed of what they've done and come forth and express not just that, but also try to stop it. And the only way that we can stop it is from our end. And Rick kept calling me a liar and saying thy foul throat. And like the last day, right before I left, one of the lieutenants that I always hung around with, she was like, "Hey, do you want your statistics, piece of paper with your statistics on it?" And I was like, I didn't even know what it was. So I was like, okay, sure, just.
And one of the lieutenants I was friends with, she was like, "Hey, do you want your statistics sheet?" And I was like, "Well, sure, why not? Like a record of my stuff." And I known this thing existed because people use this for promotional purposes.
It is like, I guess it's like a scorecard or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. It was just one of those things that I thought was the stupid. Why'd they give it to me? Because all it did was make me feel terrible about like. It made me question myself, it made me question my integrity.
I've only been contacted by the United States government twice. Well, technically once. First was by the FBI, and they called me up and they said, "Mr. Bryant, this is the FBI, you're not in trouble." So I took that as kind of a good sign, until they told me that I was on the ISIS kill list.
That was the second time that they'd approached me officially. Actually, the first time I was in Seattle getting health care at the VA, and they were like, "Mr. Bryant, this is the FBI. You're not in trouble." And then they kept told me that I was on the ISIS kill list and that I should stop my social media.
And they're like, "No, no, Mr. Bryant, you are now on the ISIS kill list, and we want to send 2 agents to your location. Can you tell us where you're at?" I was like,
The FBI was saying that you were on an ISIS kill list.
yes, they're telling me that I was on an ISIS kill list.
The strange thing is I've never really gotten an official response from the United States government. In fact, the only time I've ever talked to the government was when the FBI called me about 3 weeks ago and told me that I wasn't in trouble, but someone was coming after me and they wanted to warn me. So that was like the only time. And it wasn't Muslim. It was a conservative right-wing Christian group. Unfortunately, Christian patriots.
And like, fucking the FBI called me. Like, we have an article. My Jesslyn Raddick, who was my lawyer representation at the time.
Miss Raddick, this video is an open letter to you about your public relations work on behalf of Brandon Bryant and Cian Westmoreland. In our previous video entitled Brandon Bryant the Documentary, Drones and Deceptions, we made the argument that Brandon Bryant is a serial liar and professional victim who internalizes fiction to the point of costuming himself as a messianic fantasy figure and plagiarizing words of fictional heroes to audiences around the world, including in your presence. In this video, we like to explore Brandon's desire to be a guiding light and an example for the world. Is this indication of a messiah complex?
She called them, and they're like, they told her, they're like, "We weren't trying to be hostile." And I was like, I know you. I know what I don't trust. Like, I don't trust our government because I know the fucking shit that goes on behind it. And the people that are in it, they don't have the heart to live their inner convictions. Especially. So, excuse me. So I want to get into the true discussion behind this. And, you know, my disappointment with Rick Rynearson and understanding of his character and everything that has gone on behind him. He's a very tragic man. But it also inspired me to really dive deep down into like I was like, am I lying? Like, constantly. So I have to thank this man for being as difficult of a challenge as he was. Because when he was telling me that I was lying, I was like, am I lying? Like, I sat there like trying to figure out, like, am I lying? Are these memories wrong? Is my heart wrong for understanding like what has happened and gone? I've gone through this process, and it was really heartbreaking, you know, especially as I started researching. But Rick Rynearson had this blog called "Pick Your Battles." And that's only a mantra of those who don't battle. And this is where I feel like he's right and wrong. When I first heard it, I admired it, but then as I thought deeply about it, I was like, because, like, you know, there's a time to retreat. There's a time to reassess your strengths and weaknesses, because you go straight forward into the fucking fight without understanding what it is that you're doing. You're dead. You're dead, and everyone around you's dead. You know, and that's a big thing about this whole thing with Yemen coming up, is that I helped hunt down Anwar al-Awlaki, even though I was barely aware at that point, I was something else. I feel like that's why I wanted to combine this idea of this confrontation with this Rick Rynearson guy, because he has every opportunity to come around, and he was in the drone program. He refused to fucking order. Like, he has the ability to say, this is shit. Like, yeah, look at all this shit saying. Like, he is a military fucking great officer, and he was out there, and he has a lawyer wife. But I think that he has a lawyer wife because he fucking pisses people off and wants legal fucking protection because she can manipulate the system. Like, that's the problem, is that this guy has the potential to be a good officer and leader in today's America, but he fights and battles in such a disgusting and toxic manner that no one wants to listen to him. And he manipulates shit. So that's one of the things about Valhalla. And I'm going to talk about Rick again, because I wrote this story for when I got out, called The Road to Valhalla, for my English 101 writing class. And it was about getting to Valhalla. And one of the comments that this guy made on one of my social media platforms, I think it was my Google Plus, he was like, "You will never get into Valhalla. And your grandfather, you disappointed your grandfather." And I was like, how the fuck, like, you just say that? You just say that? And so